Yeah, here I am looking for the Esplanade Hotel in St Kilda. I saw it a few years back and it was just being renovated and it had a lot of scaffolding, so I'm not sure what's going on with it today. Here we go.
Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today it's all about the Esplanade Hotel in St Kilda in Victoria. And so firstly, St Kilda itself as a town began as a seaside village in about the 1840s when it was settled. And the Esplanade Hotel began its life as the New Bath Hotel. It was in 1856 for a guy called James Johnston. And it was actually his successor, Charles Waddell, who changed its name to the Criterion. And in fact, Charles was instrumental in introducing string music as part of, the hotel's entertainment. So look, the hotel was demolished and it lay vacant for many years. It was rebuilt in 1878 and the Hotel Esplanade came into existence. Now, the hotel was actually home for many years for a guy called Alfred Felton. He was a wealthy philanthropist and he loved classical music and art. And I mention him because he's a really important figure. He actually bequeathed his fortune to the Victorian National Gallery. And so in fact, you can actually find on the top floor at the Espy a bar that's dedicated to Alfred. Mark Twain apparently also stayed at the hotel in the 1880s. Now, more changes came to the hotel from a guy called Thomas Carleon in the 1920s. And during his reign, the hotel actually became a premier jazz venue. A ballroom was added, and apparently the actress Sarah Bernhardt stayed at the hotel with an entourage apparently of 12 animals.
Here I am inside the Gershwin room, which is quite old. It's been around since the 1920s and used to be a ballroom. Absolutely gorgeous. Check out the ceilings up there. Wow, really nice. You can see how they've tried to keep it intact with just all the historical elements. Really pretty. Gershwin room, Hotel Esplanade.
The 1920s, 30s, 40s, there was entertainment, frequently at the hotel that featured jazz. There were big bands that were performing there weekly. And it was in the 1960s when, with St Kilda's affordable sort of housing, a lot of people kind of moved in. There were more and more sort of live music venues that were becoming, common. And pubs kind of started to appear. Or live music started to appear in pubs, I should say. That's when it started to really become very kind of popular with people. Now, I did want to highlight the relevance of jazz and jazz musicians playing in St Kilda, and not just at the Espy, I guess, but the Victorian Jazz Club, for example, they held regular gigs at the Espy or the Esplanade Hotel, and there are a lot of live recordings. For example, Roger Bell, the New Harlem Jazz Band, Tom Baker's San Francisco Jazz Band, and the Yarra Yarra Jazz Band. So look, by about 1979, the Hotel Esplanade was one of the few venues where jazz continued to be played as it had since like the 1920s, with, various acts such as, the late, great Ruby Carter. Mid-1970s wasn't just all about jazz. There did sort of there was a time when disco kind of crept in, and a lot of crowds, a lot of disco fans did frequent the place. Now, the late Dolores San Miguel of the Crystal Ballroom fame, she actually ran some of the shows in the Gershwin Room in the mid-80s. And I wanted to pay particular attention to Trish Shoesmith, the late Trish Shoesmith, who was really popular with a lot of people at the Hotel Esplanade. In 1989, she actually took over the bookings, and the era of original bands actually did begin, although she did, I think, still keep some of the traditional bands that were playing. Now, yeah, as I said, sadly, Trish is no longer with us, but it's really clear to me from some of the literature that I've read that she was really popular and passionate. She didn't really care who was signed to who. As Dallas Crane actually said in a post that I read, yeah, she wasn't really fussed about, how many times a day the latest band got played on Triple J. And he said that she just wanted her pub to be the rock and roll heartbeat of the town, with artists who bled bullets and played from the gut, and that's exactly what it became.
Here's the interior. It's a Monday morning, so not a lot of people here. I've never been here. How? How have I never been here? Wow. Just fantastic. I can already sort of feel a bit of atmosphere, even in an empty sort of setting. Very characteristic.
Don DeVal and his partners took over the lease of the Esplanade in the early 1980s, and, he picked up various acts, including a lot of country music performers. Bruce Waby, he was the booker and a publican, and he tended to pick up the less exposed or the less well-exposed artists. And in 1988, Bruce actually began presenting live music in the Lounge Bar 7 nights a week. Now, various bands like the Baby Animals, Def FX, the Whitlams, they all kind of started playing there, and punters just came in their droves, and really quickly it kind of became the place to play. From what I've read, there were other venues like The Venue, Bananas, and they all started to close down. And places like Chasers, the Chevron, they kind of changed into dance clubs. So, is it true that I read somewhere that there were other venues around, like The Venue and the Prince of Wales, that kind of attracted the bigger sort of bands, whereas in the beginning, the Espy kind of only sort of, picked up the less exposed artists. Would that be true?
Well, yeah. Well, I
Initially.
remember a lot of bluesy type bands. I remember people like Phil Parra.
Yeah.
He played there forever. And he was like
Yeah.
this Jimi Hendrix kind of sounding guitarist who's supposed to be very good at copying Jimi Hendrix's style. But I remember I started managing I Spit in a Gravy later.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I noticed you got the photo there on the steps of the Esplanade. Well, I organised that.
Oh, wow.
And you can see me there with a weird black and white op shop suit.
Okay.
In the background there. I'm in there and all that. And so, yeah. So
for many years, there was a recording studio behind the Gershwin Room, and this became known as Espy Recorders. Now, artists like the Beasts of Bourbon, Things of Stone and Wood, Yothu Yindi, Men at Work, Renee Geyer, The Bad Loves, Broderick Smith, Dave Graney, Nick Barker, and like Paul Kelly, he recorded tracks for his album live at the Continental and the Esplanade in the Gershwin Room. And not just that, the hotel also started to host a phenomena, called the Espy Comedy in 1990. People like Trevor Hoare, who created this performance space that was kind of found nowhere else in Melbourne. And, a lot of really awesome comedians like Peter Grace, Steve Bedwell, Mick Malloy, Magda Zabansky, Tony Martin, all kind of, showcase their talent on the stage there.
You have to keep in mind that Barry is a very naughty psychopath. Thank you. There it is. The musical component. How is that choreography? How many people thought they were here to see Ricky Martin? I'm living La Vida Unco.
Since about 2005, the music quiz show Rock Whiz has been filmed in the Gershwin Room. In the late 90s, the ABC aired a show called Hessie's Shed, which was hosted by Paul Hester. That was filmed live at the Espy, and it featured his band, The Largest Living Things.
the Esplanade,
Yeah.
first show they were filming. It was
Yeah,
like
they started that.
a pilot. It was the very first one. Anyway, and then what they do is that they have competition between all the tables. Where our table won,
Yeah.
and so I ended up going up on stage,
Oh, how funny.
and they have like famous musicians as on
Yeah.
each table, and Joe Camilleri was
Mm.
on mine, but I do remember drinking too much. And obvious questions about music. It just all like escaped me. I'm going, oh, and I was so embarrassed.
From rock and roll to pop to grunge to metal, country, all kinds of genres. And whilst it has been difficult to, find all of the bands that played at the Espy, I've decided to include just a few pictures and images of posters and bands that did, perform at the Espy.
A one, a two, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Walking around the streets late at night, working cars waiting, treating me right. I come back again. I'm just crazy about you, babe.
No.
Now listen, we're stepping out. Gonna turn around once, and I'll do the eagle rock.
By about 1989, 1989, there was a lot of community concern about development proposals that were threatening the future of the Espy. And it was really prominent. There was a lot of activism that was going on in the streets and with, the general public, the councils, the developers, the owners of the time. And there were things like Save St Kilda and Turn the Tide that really, I think, were instrumental in keeping the Espy alive. Well done.
Local debate is now raging over the fate of a Melbourne icon and live music institution, the Esplanade Hotel. As Alex Tarney reports, the development of the Espy, recently purchased by the property group Beckton, will set the benchmark for St Kilda's future.
And a lot of culture takes place, a lot of rites of passage, a lot of the community grows up in the pub and around the pub. And that's what the Espy is in St Kilda. People who own this hotel should really think twice about changing it into a block of flats. We've all seen number 96 and, it's okay for the developers. They get a nice little bit of money in their bank account, but, we live here, we breathe here, we breed here. Be very careful.
So, regarding the owners, there were various owners throughout the Espy's life. I think it's important to note that the building does have National Trust heritage listing. And I think the new owners are fantastic in that they wanted to keep the character of the Espy intact. For example, when they were, undergoing the renovations, they said that anything original they did want to keep or restore. And they've been noted to describe the Espy as iconic, grand and beautiful. And they just sort of, they understood that the people of Melbourne were connected to the building and said that, everyone does have an Espy story. Regarding the look and the feel of the Espy, I think, just go and check it out today. See for yourself what it looks like with all the different levels, all the bars, restaurants, beer garden, the basement, public bar. There's even a fully equipped podcast studio which patrons can rent out. So it's a fabulous venue. I think they've done a fantastic job.
So this room is called the basement, and they have local bands that play down here. You can see it's very intimate. It's got a cute little bar. There's the basement bar at the Espy. And if I pan it around, you can see some of the posters up here. Fantastic. Really cool. All these posters. And down here, I think, is a kitchen maybe. Here's some more posters.
I asked the Esplanade when it reopened, I asked them what's going on with the basement. They said, well, going to be open. I said, well, what about if I open it as a bartender? And they said, oh, come on, Timmy, surely you want to run a night there. I said, well, I just want to bartend. I was looking to get out of playing and touring. The Espy isn't what it used to be, but neither are we. But the basement, I thought, well, I could work here because they don't make cocktails and you can sling beers and maybe put on music because it's still a great little stage there. And so they said, well, you can have one night a week doing the Roger Stein Lounge or whatever you want to call it. And we had nights down there, which was great fun. And then I said, look, can I get some other shifts? And so I was doing about 4 or 5 shifts a week just down at the basement. And it was great. We had, the blues afternoon on Saturday and Steve Lucas had come down and other acts that were great. And I loved talking to folks who came down there. I loved working at the Espy.
Miff Warhurst remembers walking into the Espy when she moved to Melbourne in the early 90s. She said she saw so many bands there and recalls everyone at the pool tables looking like they were having a fabulous time. She said it felt really welcoming, and a lot of comedy icons actually started there, people like Judith Lucy as well. Steve Lucas, Steve from X, he's spoken about his love and affection for the Espy often. He does say that it may not be, Sydney's opera house, but she is a grand old dame as far as the Melbourne music scene, goes. He actually met his first wife on the steps of the Espy, and he played a few New Year's Eve gigs with Bigger Than Jesus, and he has some fantastic memories of the Espy. He did say that it didn't matter how late his band X played elsewhere the night before, they'd always head to the Espy at opening time, head straight to the booths, and he recalls B-52 cocktails were a favourite at one time, and said that the gigs in the front bar were the stuff of legends. Ken Farmer said the Espy was completely unpretentious, no other venue has the same atmosphere, and its value is cultural as well as historical. Horsehead played often at the front bar at the Espy. Scott Kingman recalls that some of the most memorable gigs of Melbourne music were at the Espy. The staff, the stages, he said the vibe was like a breeding ground for some of Melbourne's greatest art cultures, and it is a really sorely missed venue. Steve Cummings, he said that the venue has a great kind of feel that nowhere else in Melbourne has. He speaks about a special atmosphere in the front bar and how there's an incredible mix of ages and different types of people. Tex Perkins, he says it's hard to fathom how his career would have gone without the Esplanade Hotel and the niche that it provides for up-and-coming as well as established artists. It's always good to hear from punters, and Andrew Robinson has been a punter of the Espy for a long time. He said it was a wonderful mix of seediness, bygone splendour and fun for seeing bands of all standards. The Gershwin Room, he said, was fantastic for bigger gigs, and a particular favourite of his was to meet friends to attend the live PBS FM Movin' and Groovin' Hour. He said that with all the different band stages, along with the old pool room at the back, the small beer garden and quality food, he reckons that you could spend almost a whole day there and bump into all sorts of friends and acquaintances.
G'day, Fred Negro's the name. I draw the pub strip in Press and various other publications, and basically what I do is just chronicle the history of rat bags in St Kilda.
Fred Negro, what can I say about Fred? He's the unofficial mayor of St Kilda. The late Roland S. Howard once said that you hadn't made it in Melbourne until you'd appeared in one of Negro's pub strips. So Negro is the subject of a recent documentary by filmmaker Andrew Levold. I had a chat with Paul Elliott, a man involved in Melbourne community radio for over 40 years now. He once owned the Melbourne shop Polyester Books and Records.
Actually, what started it really, I was a frustrated, I wouldn't say musician, I'd say more performer. My claim to fame there, actually, I didn't mention that before, is I was on New Faces back when I first arrived in Australia in 1970. And I got myself on New Faces. It's funny how it was a different era in those times. I actually came second with a song that I wrote called Heaven and Hell or the Bathroom Floor.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And, I was very stoned, actually, when I was on the TV show. And I'm sure that the statute of limitations have passed, so arrest me for that.
There's been a lot of talk, over the years about the rivalry between Sydney and Melbourne, about who is the music capital of Australia. All I want to say about that is that every city in Australia has produced gems. Venues like the Espy in Melbourne, Selena's in Sydney. Some venues just have a particular magic, more so than others, I guess. I hope I've done justice to this wonderful venue. Unfortunately, coming from Sydney, I never really attended gigs in Melbourne. So, yeah, I just wanted to really shine a light on the Esplanade Hotel as being an iconic venue that thankfully is still around. So whatever happened to the Espy, it's been salvaged. There were too many people that just loved it, and check it out. It's still there. Thanks for watching, guys, and be sure to like and subscribe. Check out all the other, gigs. Check out all the other videos that I've done and any future upcoming vlogs. Thanks.